Welcome to Garden Scroll. Well, I would have to say that our beautiful fall days went away before they even set in. We have this week and next week in the forecast as hot and dry and a high 90s anyway. So we're back to that summer's heat pretty much, but the days are shorter. The mornings and the evenings are cooler. I'm still having to water quite a bit, but not as much. It won't be too long now before it'll go down to every other day, I believe. And then we can just maybe enjoy some pretty days in the garden. You might can tell that I did get a bunch of those dead daylily stalks out of the garden. I have some that are supposed to be twice blooming in the spring and again in the fall. So we'll see if we get any that come up in the fall. This is the St. Joseph's wort bush. It's very pretty. Even just this little bush is pretty. And then of course in the late spring it gets the beautiful tufts of yellow that look like a fiber optic top to them. My canna is looking pretty today. Pretty bright red canna. The ironweed that was just beginning to bloom in our earlier post is pretty much all filled out in pretty purple bloom right now. I haven't noticed the butterflies being on it as much as they normally are. So, and it could be because I did end up spraying for the grasshoppers, even though they're still out quite a bit. But I got some of them too. I got actually some dahlias to bloom instead of just being eaten up from the grasshoppers before they had a chance to bloom. My crepe myrtle that I thought was all finished blooming, once we got that rain, it decided to just bloom again. I need to kind of thin up my now I can't think of the name of this, Russian sage. I need to thin it a bit. It's kind of fallen all over the place. But I love this little bush too. Pretty zinnias this morning are looking good. So with the increase in heat again, I haven't done anything to the iris beds other than I did plant a few where I used to have my salvia. So while I'm glad that I got my new iris planted, I think I may have jumped the gun a bit on cleaning out my iris beds in the front, because I think they may all have to be trimmed again by the time frost gets here. But they look like this, so you can see why I wanted to go ahead and trim them. So, and I may do this one, but I may just go ahead and wait now. Time, even though it seems like there's still some time, which there is a little, but it can just go so fast. I know there's been many times I didn't get this done until spring, so it may happen again, but I hope to get it done in the fall. It's just easier to clip it while it's still firm, and easier to clip than when you have to dig around and find it and clip it off, and be careful not to pull it up because it's all limp. But hopefully I'll get that done too. And hopefully I will wait a little while so that it won't have to be done twice. The rose moss is looking good this morning, I noticed. Even this little pale yellow is just shining. Across from my irises, this is another place where I cleaned out all the dead daylily stalks. So while there's still a lot to do before I would have it cleaned up for a fall garden tour, there's a lot coming on to show you that, look, the sedums are beginning to fill out their blossoms and even open up a little bit of them. I noticed that this pretty bunch of impatiens and double impatiens are looking good this morning. They about have that little girl that's in there covered totally up. I might need to trim some of those back too, but it just looks so good like that to me too. So many of them there. And I noticed, look, here's a mum down under this. This is columbine, but right here's a mum down under it, and it's beginning to open up a bloom too. But there's a lot I need to do to get it ready for fall, ready to go dormant, and even ready to come back out in the spring, because there's several things that I do want to move and just take clippings from. Oh, okay, here's one right here, this little, right in front of me, this little pretty Gara with the white butterfly looking blossoms. It comes right out into my path. That was not a good place to put it, but I have a place where it'll look perfect. So over on my east fence in the front, it was going to look really good. I thought about purchasing another peony to put in where the one that I lost due to a mole. It's tunneled up through my row, but that's the only one that it took out, thank goodness. Oh, I've really enjoyed this blue cardinal plant. I also think I want to remove some of it from around this, because down in underneath there is a fern that I would like to give it a better chance to grow and do well there. My fall clematis or clematis is still not all the way up. You can see June bugs are still flying over trying to get the rest of the peaches that are all fallen off the tree, and some are left on the ground that they're trying to get. But I'm still waiting and hoping that this will be one big lush of white bloom, and I hope I get to show that to you. And I noticed that this little red verbena is really shining today. I need to go ahead and freshen up some of these pots also. This one's looking fairly good, but I'll probably put another cutting from a coleus. I actually had two in there, this one and one on the other side, but only this one made it. So I'll probably try another, and again I'll probably wait until the weather is cooler again. I did go ahead and try a few rooting, but only a few of them actually made it to, and they may not because it's just still too hot for them to take root without wilting too much. These little pots are beginning to fill out good. They're still a disappointment this year. I wanted the Calabrachoa in each one of them, and I've got some in each one, but they're not the prettiest thing in any of them. This is the best one of all. It does have some flowing Calabrachoa out of it, and then there's others in there that's at least still alive, but most of all these others are just so scraggly with Calabrachoa, and then the other things are kind of trying to take over, which actually I'm okay with that because there's not time for the Calabrachoa to do much this year anyway, and hopefully we can get them full and looking nice for a fall garden tour. And I did get this little pot, the one that it was in just completely got brittle and fell off, and it just kind of brittled. It's so brittle that when you touch it and pick it up, it just broke in different pieces. So I put a different pot on that and hung this one back up on the fence, or along the fence. More of that cardinal, that blue cardinal flower, which is doing really great. It said that it was more hardy than the red, and I certainly believe it is because I got a lot of it to grow and I didn't have any of the red to come up. I see I've got some in there I need to get out of there too. But there's a lot of places like that where they succumb to the summer, the heat of summer, and I'll just have to go ahead and try to clip all that back, and then I think it's still going to be plenty there to look just really nice for fall. I would like to wait until more of the mums are blooming anyway before I try to do all that, so hopefully I'll have all that done and be able to have a little bit of a garden tour for just some of our friends. I did trim some of these back a bit too, so you can see the little angels that are inside of them, or the little ornament garden art that's along the fence row here. I don't know if you can tell in the sunlight how pretty this little zinnia is, and it's really only just begun its showing. I think it'll even get fuller. And this little pot was looking scraggly, had none on this side, and then the ones on this side were way taller than they are now and just totally looked lanky and not good. So I clipped them off and transplanted them over to this other side, so they probably won't do a lot this year, but hopefully next year this pot will be fuller and just much prettier. Also planted some shade grass underneath this redbud tree, and it's coming up nicely. I don't know if you can tell in the sunlight there, but it does have the little scraggly starts of new seeds, new grass seeds, so hopefully this will look good next year too. And I did go ahead and put several of my plants into bigger pots. This was one of them that really did need it. The roots had totally filled out the other one, and it was getting root bound. There was not much soil around it other than just what was bound up in the roots. So I took it out and put it in a bigger pot, and I think it'll be ready to take in. This is that variegated hibiscus with a red pendulous bloom, and it's just very pretty, and I really like it. And hopefully I'm surprised at myself for being able to save it through the winter now for at least 2 years, maybe more, maybe 3, but anyway, I think it's ready to go back in and hopefully to live again and be back out next spring. And I haven't yet got any of these other pots redone. As a matter of fact, I want to enjoy what's in them as long as I can, but I do think I want to put little starts of what I actually want in there next year along the way, because I'm going to change this up some where it will be easier to take care of and not need so much water and so much time spent on it each day for it to hopefully still look good. Of course, this is one thing I'm not taking out, is this pretty sedum, which hasn't got its heads on yet, but you can tell it's beginning to think about it real strongly. And I'll leave this one with the cactus in it, and if these will live through the winter, I'll leave this little succulent in there too. I think that's really pretty. And then, of course, this is a pretty mum, or it will be when it blooms. I still think they are when they're just green. But right here in this little nook, I've got to figure out something for that. I'm not sure what I want there. I don't know if I want it to keep it low so I can see back in that area and take care of anything I need to, or if I want something taller where you can see it over the fence there. So I've got to think about that one, figure out what I want to do there. And I really like this grass. I think I might put some of this in a pot where it'll stand up a little bit taller, like maybe in this pot right here. Maybe with this cactus that's in there. If you can see that there's a cactus in there. Yeah, there it is. But I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to put those yet, but somewhere over here on this side, because it's hard for me to water on this side except for hand watering. So because if I get close enough with my sprinkler, it gets a little too close and gets over the fence. So I'm going to try to get this where it'll have stuff that only needs hand watering, which, as I've told you before, and you know, the hand watering does fine to an extent, but then there's times when it just needs to be left there for a good length of time to do some good, because that in that heat, the hand watering is just barely keeping it alive, and sometimes not even then, depending on how much heat we're going through, that it just needs more in the summer if it's a plant that takes more water. And I'm not real sure about this one. I kind of want to leave this one where I can put, even though they take more water, where I can put coleus and maybe verbena, butterfly plant, the penta actually. That's what I was thinking of. And just some different ones, some periwinkle, some color. This is the first pot you see when you come inside the back gate, and it's just my welcome pot, so I kind of want lots of color here, but we'll see. Sometimes lots of color is not as pretty as just some succulents and green foliage plants that really don't wilt down and look ugly through the summertime. But also I can plant these in a different spot and then transplant them when it gets cool again. I'm not sure if I want to do that, and the reason there would be because sometimes our weather just goes from hot to frost, and I hate it when that happens, but it's happened twice in a row. And if you don't have time to enjoy it, you don't really want to take all that time, work, and effort to fix something that you're not going to get to enjoy. So I'm still deciding and debating on that one too, but I do love the color, the look of lots of color. And here's one of my little succulent pots, which I like it too. I just really don't know if you can beat just a bunch of succulents. Even though they're all green, there are lots of different shades of green. This is that thundercloud, little miniature sedum. It's beautiful. And then all these others. I love this variegated sedum, and then this little blue-green. So all together it still makes a pretty little showing. Most all of my coleus need to be clipped back, and I could do that now, and I may do some of it. I have done a little But I also may just wait, because if there happens to be any holes or bare spots that I need to fill in, I can always just take the clippings of the coleus, and when the weather is cooler, they will definitely go right ahead and just dip those in rooting powder and put them in the ground, and they'll usually take right on up from there. If the weather's cool enough, they won't even wilt down. And if it's hot, lots of times they'll wilt down. You can cut the wilted part off once it gets its little root down, and then it'll build its foliage back up. And of course that's not always, because it just depends on how hot things are and how much you can keep it watered and take care of it, but it's always worth a try. So here is the spot for my white Gaura that I showed you in the back that I don't like where I have it. I'm going to try to put it just up against this fence, or on this side, of course, of the fence. And what I thought I might do is put like one here, two here, and then one in the center there, and just do that all the way down, simply because I just love how this looks in that spot, in that area. Just a little show off today. Oh, and I wanted to show you that this is that celosia that it got heavy with our last rain, which has been several days ago now, but and it had fallen over into my pathway, but I did put it over here, and it's drooping a little bit, but you can tell that it's going to make it there, and it looks good there. My tomato catch, this was supposed to have been the little cherry tomatoes, but I only got maybe 4 off of it, and see, even it got destroyed by the heat and the grasshoppers. And this is how my new little area looks. It's, as you can tell, that it's coming right back on up, so I probably will have to trim this off again. And then look at this. These are the new ones that I painted, and as I'm telling you that, I'm seeing something right here moving, and I'm sure that's a snail. This little snail, I'm sorry to say, is not going to live. I won't show that on here, but he's got to go because he will destroy things in my garden. This is another one of those little thundercloud sedums. It's just a miniature sedum like the autumn joy. It has actually a white bloom, but it's very pretty for smaller pots. It just works great. And then I'm going to go on down here a little, because a friend of mine came by and brought me something that I want to show you. Isn't that pretty? So even though fall hasn't got here yet, the promise of fall is still staying strong. These are some of the petunias that I clipped back, and they're blooming again. And there's some more of them. I actually got a few more tomatoes off of my little tomato plant. It's called Beef Master, which actually a couple of them were big enough to cover up a whole slice of bread, but the others were, which there weren't that many of them anyway, but the other 2 or 3 were not nearly as big, but they were very tasty. I did, however, have to clip off places where the grasshoppers had beat me to it. And this, of course, is another one of my little succulent pots. I just love all the textures and colors that are shades of green together. It's always pretty. And here's another couple of pots that I transplanted these. This is that beautiful blue butterfly plant. It's still got some buds on it, so I'm hoping it'll bloom again for you, and I can show that to you again. You can look back and see it on some of them, but it hasn't had a big showing yet. But I hope to keep this through the winter. I did last year, so hopefully I will again. And then this little plant is another one that I put in a bigger pot, and I told you that I thought it had finished blooming for the season, and then actually it's blooming right now. And this is also another one that I kept through the winter, and it did live for me. I'm sure that's not a problem for most people. I just cannot seem to do houseplants, so when I get one to live for me, I'm just so excited about it and so happy that it did. And this, I love this little purple heather in this little turquoise pot. So it's kind of been hidden all summer, and I pulled it out here where we can see and enjoy it. Actually the heather was not looking so good, but it's beginning to now. It loves the cooler weather. Even though it's pretty warm today, it's still 95 is still, 10 degrees cooler than 105. And noticed also when I was out taking some still pictures today that some of my pretty pink bacopa, this may be the only one that made it through, and you can tell it looks pretty scraggly and pitiful in those spots back there. I may have to clip those off. Sometime when I start clipping them off, I know people say that gives them renewed energy and they can go on from there, which we'll see. Hopefully that will happen, but I did that one onto this one up here, and it just clipped it off, and it really did not go on from there. It pretty much just fizzled out from there, so we'll see what happens, but it's pretty right now. There's those pretty red peppers that definitely say fall. And here's several more. This is that same blue butterfly plant, and here's some more blooms that I'm pretty sure will bloom before the season's over. My Mexican flame vine it's not blooming yet, but it's beginning to come right on up its trellises. I have them in several places, but they know it's fall too, and they're going to be blooming before very long. I was thinking that I had one down here on this little trellis too, but this looks like it may be more of the black-eyed Susan vine. And I have several different colors of it, so I'm not sure which one this one is that I planted. And also, I forgot to show you when I was in the back, but I do have a, what's the curly ones that curl up? A corkscrew vine. I just planted it from seed. I planted one from an actual plant, and I planted it early in the spring. We had the late frost. It died, so I found one little seed left, and I planted it. I wasn't even sure it was out there, but I'm pretty sure that's what's coming up back there, and it's already probably 1.5 feet up its little trellis. So hopefully we'll have some corkscrew vine blooms I can show you. And I think this is actually a morning glory. I try not to have too many morning glories because they can get invasive so fast, but I do think they're beautiful. And one of them, I was hoping it was this one. It's just such a beautiful blue trimmed in white, so I'm not sure if that's what this one is or not, but that's one reason I'm leaving it there to see. I love the color of this coleus. So bright and pretty. And the Pletranthus are blooming. I love this little pretty dark green all summer long, and then late summer and early fall it puts on these beautiful purple blooms. And there's some more of it right there. And I don't think it's blooming right now, but right below this little bird there's some of it too. So even though I got a little bit in a hurry for fall, I just wanted it so bad I tried to make it be here because we had one beautiful, cool, rainy day. But it is going to be here. It'll be here before we know it, practically. And there's so much to do then, gathering in seeds, taking all the plants in that you want to save, taking little clippings of others that I can save in the window. It will be such a very busy, busy time. Thank you so much for going on the garden scrolls with me. I hope you enjoy them. I hope it inspires you to do things in your garden that you've been wanting to do or hadn't had an idea what to do, that maybe it gave you some ideas. So happy gardening, happy fall. And I also wanted to say, please do like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.